Hey guys, I'm back with, I guess, a tutorial. This one was requested by one of my um, followers. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you some stamps that I actually stamped out. This is for how I do layered stamping. And I know some people kind of shy away from it because it is more involvement. It takes more time because you have to stamp multiple times. But I enjoy it because of the results that you get, and I have lots of ink colors to play with, so I enjoy doing it. Um, so I'm going to use this Build a Gingerbread Man stamp set as an example, and this actually has multiple layers for the body, as well as some layers for the face and the buttons that are on the gingerbread man. And so I've done some playing around already, and I really hadn't planned on doing a tutorial, but I'll show you that this particular gingerbread man, which I've stamped out multiple times here, you can see I've used different colors for the gingerbread, and this particular one here on the right is done using these hybrid inks that I purchased from scrapbook.com in a separate haul, so you can see that I'm using what I purchased. It's the gingerbread color, leather, and dark chocolate. And so you can see the result here of doing the stamping. I believe that's what I had, right? Yes. And then the green comes from a dye ink, which is from Paper Tray ink. Those are just the buttons. Simple. Then I tried it again with a different set of colors, and this is all dye ink. Different formulation. These are colors from Paper Tray ink. It didn't give me the exact result that I was looking for in terms of coloring, so I went ahead and did the middle one, and the middle one is using dye ink from Altenew. So this little guy is where I landed in terms of I like the color, I like the results that I got. Now I will say, once the image is dried, you you do get some, what do I want to say, fuzziness around the edges of the ink. And that's just a property, I think, of this particular ink, because it doesn't do that with the Paper Tray inks. And they're the same dye formulation. I mean, in terms of, they're both dye inks. I think this is a crisper image than this. However, I like the colors of the gingerbread here. Okay. And so I have used the same cardstock for all of my stamping. This is the Paper Tray ink Stamper Select White. It's a very nice quality, good price point, and I use it for all my stamping pretty much if I'm going to do this type of stamping, and even some Copic coloring, I will use this as well sometimes. So when you see these images, these are all done with the same Altenew ink colors. Okay, the red comes from the Paper Tray Pure Poppy ink, and it's a die. Oh, actually, no, I switched it out. I used the ruby red for the buttons here. So these three colors are what I used: almond butter, which is the lightest, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate. These are the three that I used to create this stamped image. And the ink is stamped twice. The image is stamped twice for every layer, with the exception of, I believe, the first layer, maybe, because some of that is overlapped by this, or maybe it was the second. Let me see. Sorry, I did the almond butter twice, the milk chocolate once, and the dark chocolate once. See, I remember now because I wrote it down. And then the ruby red one time. So the only one that has a double layer is this almond butter, because it's the base layer. And I wanted good coverage for that. The red really doesn't matter all that much because it's just the buttons. So let me show you how I line up. All of my layering stamps, I typically use my Stamparatus. And if you guys have not watched me before, use this tool. This is my go-to tool because stamp positioner, because you can change out the lids. And if you can still buy these, I believe, from Stampin' Up. I'm no longer a demonstrator, so you would have to, you know, just go to their website. You can pick a demonstrator if you want, up to you, or if you already have one. Because it comes with 2 lids, and you can use both sides of the lids. And in this case, I just used 2 lids. So it can go on the top or the side. I always tend to use the side one because when I ink up, it's easier for me. And you kind of, it's easier because I like to put this underneath so that your pressure is even. And this is just one of those Stampin' Up DVD cases that the stamps come in. If you have one, to keep it level so that when you're inking the side here, that your pressure is equal across the whole thing, and you're not going to stress out your plastic hinge here. So I just keep a DVD case here underneath. And I have my stamps already set up, but I'm going to show you how I line them up. But I don't want to do it on every single stamp because it takes too long, right? So for this one, and this is just a Cricut mat that I've cut up to fit into my Stamparatus. And I know that the first layer lines up actually right around this area right here. Okay, and this is just a scrap piece of white paper that I had laying around. It's the same Stampers Select White. I do have a crease down it. I'm not going to worry about it because I know this is just for demo purposes. So I'm going to put my square here. This is one of those magnet corners from the Misty line. You guys know I use those for lots of different things. Make sure your mat is held down, and I use this so that I can just stick my paper to it, and for other reasons, but it's always in my stamp positioner. And then I will use the magnet to also hold the paper down so it doesn't shift. Now, you know this mat's not that sticky, so I'm going to actually move that over here, I think. Because when I lift my stamp, I don't want my paper to shift around. All right, so I'm just going to try and stick it down a little bit more by pressing down or rubbing it. And it somewhat goes down, it's fine. I just want to make sure that my image, which is already loaded up because I'd done some stamping before, is going to be fine. And I'm actually going to move this because it looks like I can shift it over and be totally fine with that. So that line is not going to mess up my stamping because that can affect the ink. So let me see. Yes. All right, so that's good. I'm going to put this magnet over here so that it securely holds the paper and doesn't affect my stamping. You don't want your magnets too close to your stamp because that can also affect whether your stamped image goes down very well. So this is the, if you look at the packaging, this is this layer right here. That's the stamp right here. And this is the one that's going to get the overall coverage. So you can start with your lightest color and work to your medium and then your dark, or you can go the other direction. Now, when I say that, I mean, usually with more detailed stamps that are, maybe there's 4 or 5 layers, sometimes you want to go the other direction from dark to light. But in this case, I'm going to choose to go from light to dark. My lightest color is the overall color. And this is going to add some detail or shading to the gingerbread, okay? And then this is just an outline of the stamp, okay? So if I hold it up to close to the camera, okay, there is a very dark brown, not very dark, but there's a dark brown outline all the way around this gingerbread. And that's what this is. That's what this is. It's just to give you a little more detail. You can probably see it better maybe in this image here. Okay, and it gives you like a rounding of the cookie, so he or she looks dimensional. All right, it's different for every stamp, so it just depends on what you're trying to stamp. Okay, so I can see that my paper is going to be good in its location there. I'm gonna go ahead and ink this up with my lightest color, and then I'm gonna stamp it down, and I'm gonna do it twice. Like I said, I like a good ink transfer. So I'm going to go ahead and ink it up with my little cube ink. I only have the cubes from Altenew. So I don't have a full-size ink pad. It's usually better if you have a full size because you will get less pooling on the stamp. And you can see that it's doing that now. Even though I've used this stamp several times already. Hopefully the camera's not shaking too bad. But the less time you have in between actually inking up your stamp and stamping it down, the better. So I'm not going to wait. I'm going to just go down and go ahead and stamp it. And I have my Chucky right here. That's what they call this. Whatever. I didn't coin the term. I was just gifted this tool. So I'm just going to do that. And then we're going to go again, like I said, because you can see the ink pooling, right? You want a good impression. You want a good stamped impression. So it's one of the reasons why it's good to use a positioner, because you want it to get a good inking. And again, this is the almond butter color. And the other thing about it that you should know is, if you don't already, is that your ink will settle into the paper if it's dye ink. So it will spread over time, as it dries. And you can give it some time before you stamp the next layer if you want. It's up to you, okay? So you could see it's kind of splotchy. If I go again with my ink, it will make this darker. Do I want that? So that's only a question you can answer. I like this color right now. I don't think I want to go again with the ink, but that's going to make this look a little bit less desirable, right? Because if you look here, there will be a darker shadow on this side of the stamp because of the next layer, but it will not get this portion here that's not inked evenly. So you can decide for yourself whether or not you want to ink it again. Okay. And like I said, these are exactly the same colors that I previously used when I stamped. So you could see this is lighter. See? As it dried, it got a little bit lighter. And that's 2 layers of ink colored, right? So I can go again, I think. I'm going to go ahead and do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to the right hand. Well, no, it should be opposite. I should stick to the left-hand side of my stamp because that's the part that doesn't have the good impression or the good ink. So I'm going to ink up the left-hand side of my stamp a little bit, and then go one more time. And I'm going to make sure that I don't have any rough edges, so that, okay. So hopefully we get a better inking. So that's just basically stamping that first layer, right? So now you can see the difference because I didn't ink this side. And that's going to get more ink anyway because we're going to go with the middle. Okay, so the request was to demonstrate how I do a layered stamp, right? So with it already being set up, that doesn't help you guys. So here's the next lid that I have. And here is the layer for that little shadowing effect that this stamp design has. So I'm going to remove it from my lid and line up again so that you can see me do it. And let me see if I can get closer, because what's going to happen is I'm going to have to line up on that stamp. Okay, so that's hopefully a little bit closer for you. So this is what you do. You basically take the stamp, you make it, obviously this is the part that's going to stamp. You put it down on your existing stamped image and you line it up. And because it's already inked up, you can see how those line up. And you really do have to eyeball all the areas where it's going to go, because if you don't, it will be off, and you'll know it when you stamp it that it's off. So look at your white areas, look at where the stamped areas are, make sure everything is lined up the way you want it to be. And it's hard for me to do this through the camera, so I apologize if I do get it off in this demonstration, but I'm trying to show you how you do it. And like I said, it's hard to do this through the camera without me looking straight down. I'm picking it up so that I can look at it closer to see if it's in the right spot. And I think it is. Like I said, you'll know when it's not, because when you stamp that ink, you'll realize that you got it in a spot you didn't want it to. And I don't recommend you drink a lot of coffee when you're trying to do this, because some of these pieces are really small. Now look really closely how I have it placed. So you can see the way this stamp is designed. It's got that white curl in his head. It's got the whole white outline around his body. And this is just a shadow in certain spots of the stamp. And I think I've got it right. So all you do then is you close the lid to pick the stamp up. This is why it's so much easier to do it with a stamp positioner, one that has more than one lid. You don't need to have more than one lid, because if you have one that's big enough, you can position one stamp here, one here, and one here, but you have to know where the paper is supposed to sit. So that's another way of doing it when you have a stamp positioner that just has one lid. And that's why I like this tool so much, because it's so flexible for me to use for lots of different types of stamping. And like I said, when I purchased this, I was a demonstrator, so not only did I get the discount, but at the time they sold multiple lids in separate packs. They used to sell these like as, I want to say it was a 4-pack, or maybe it was just a 2-pack. But they sold extra lids that you could buy just for, extra stamping, or, as replacements. I don't think they do that anymore. At least I hadn't seen them for a while. Maybe they do, and maybe you can get them off of eBay. I don't know. So I'm ready to ink up again, and hopefully my stamp is in the right spot. And instead of doing the almond butter, we're going with milk chocolate, and we're just going to do one layer of ink there, because it's just this left-hand side and a little bit of the right for some details. So I know that you can't see me inking up. It's the same thing. There's nothing special about my inking. But you want to make sure that you get it good, and that the ink doesn't pool up in any specific areas, so that you get a nice even stamped image. So, get my little tool here. At first I didn't even know what this was when they sent it to me. And I'm glad somebody keyed me in, because this is great. This is a tool born out of need, instead of using your palm, because that gets old. That starts to hurt after a while. So hopefully that's enough. And I got it right on. Who knows? There we go. So you can see he's a little darker. And if you wanted to go a little bit darker even than that, you can ink it again. So let me just do that. Why not? And I think he's in the stamp is positioned in exactly the right spot, because you can see those shadows that it creates. This is a pretty unique stamp, because I don't think I have many that create these shadows like this. Like, I have lots of layering stamps, but I don't think many of them make this type of shadowing. They're not designed in this manner. So that's a little nice difference in her design. Okay, so there's the second stamping. All right, now all I have to do is flip this lid over, because my other stamp is already set up to go in the right spot. See, I have not moved the paper at all. I just changed the lids around. That's it. So now all I have to do, and I did the process of setting up where the stamp belongs was done previously when I was stamping those other images that you saw. So we're going to go in with dark chocolate, and it's just around the perimeter of a stamp. It's just the edges of the stamp that you have to, worry about, because it's just an outline that we're doing now. So this is just going to add a nice finishing touch, little rounded edge for this little ginger. He doesn't have a face yet, because that's on a different layer. And you can choose, obviously, for this stamp, you can choose what facial expression he has. So what I chose to do is, this outline color is in this dark chocolate. To bring this color back in, I did the inking for the face in the same dark chocolate color, because it has to go over both these two colors. So I thought you would be able to see it better now There we go. Let me bring it closer so you can see that outline. See, it's just a faint outline around the edge of the entire gingerbread. And he keeps his little whites. So that's kind of like the icing, you know. All right, so last layer. What I did with this was the face and the buttons are already lined up. See? So they're already lined up, and you can ink them with 2 different colors, which is what I did. It's ready to go. So I'll use the ruby red and the dark chocolate again. And you can do them together at the same time, or you can do them separately if you feel more comfortable. And this is another reason why small cubes work nicely in this sense, because when you have a smaller cube, you don't have to worry about hitting the other color because it is so small. So I did them separately, just so that you could see it happening. So I haven't done the red. What's the stick? So there's his face one time, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Now you can go in, instead of using brown, you can use black if you want, but I figured since this whole thing is done in browns, having a dark face, not black, is probably the better choice. That's just, you know, that's your choice. Whatever ink colors you want to use, up to you. So there he is. Now I'm going to do the red for the buttons. And I'm just patting both buttons with the red ink, and we'll go in there. So you notice that my colored gingies have a red tongue. All I did was come back with an ink pen and color his tongue red using a marker. I don't know if I have it out. Here it is. This is what I use, the Tombow. So just find it, if you want to, just find a inked pen that's the same color, around the same color. You don't have to do that because, you know, he's got a brown tongue, but that's up to you if you want to do that. I'm just going to do one more inking of his buttons, and voila, that's all it takes to do it. And like I said, you will arrange the ink, you will arrange the stamps each time you do it, but once you've got them arranged on your lid, you do not have to do them again, unless you don't have a stamp positioner that has the ability to put all of the images on at once, because you could move the paper from corner to corner and do it the same way that I just showed you. It's just having this tool lets me, you know, flip the lid over and also not have to reposition, because you then have to make sure you get the paper in the exact right position on your stamping tool. That's why I like this tool the most out of all the ones that I own. This is the one that's used the most. So that's it, guys. I'm going to take the paper off because we're done stamping. Bring it closer so you can see him. This is with the wet ink. Let me show you one with the dry ink so you can see how it dries. Whoops. I think these are the exact same colors that I was using. Let me just make sure. These definitely are. Yeah. So when you see this, look how much lighter the dark brown dries. It's almost you can see the difference, right? It's not going to dry this color. It's going to dry to this color. So I hope that helps you guys. Sorry this was a long video, but I wanted to go ahead and do that for the request, and maybe it'll help you in your stamping. So that's it for now. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.